Smith TD.
Good Ceann Corla. Taoiseach, yesterday Peter Mulryan stood in the High Court trying to establish what happened to his sister in Tuam. Was she trafficked or was she buried? At the same time, your Minister Michael Noonan stood outside the old Barrington's Hospital in Limerick, welcoming the new addition to the Bon Secour empire, the biggest private hospital empire in this country. And I want to argue that that empire was built on the bones of the dead Tuam babies. And Taoiseach, I'm sick of listening to ministers, including Minister Coveney on the radio last weekend, saying that we are all responsible for what happened in Tuam, that we are all responsible for the legacy. That is not the case. What happened in Tuam was paid for by the state, a headage payment, as if they were cattle or sheep for each child. The mothers who were forced to go in there, or their mothers who put them in there, didn't ask for them to be starved to death, to be neglected to death, to be buried unbeknownst to them, or indeed to be trafficked to America, where there was a headage payment in the trafficking of each child to America of between $2,000 and $3,000 at that time. A lot of money was made out of babies who went to the mother and babies' homes at that time, and it was systemic abuse. It was abuse that involved the state and the church working together. What are we going to do about it, Taoiseach? The first thing we should not do is stand outside a Bon Secour addition to their empire, celebrating it 2 days after the report comes out. How obscene. The first thing we should do, and I'm calling on you today, Taoiseach, to do this with me, is to ask the Bon Secour order to reconsider its position and to disband. It has no moral authority to remain as an order in this country. And to that end, I'm actually calling on all the communities where there is a Bon Secour utility, in Limerick, in Cork, in Cavan, in Dublin, in Tralee, to stand outside those hospitals this Friday at 6 o'clock in a dignified protest bearing white ribbons to the memory of those children and calling on that order to disband. Because this was a system of abuse. It was a network of buildings and of institutions and organisations, of orphanages, Magdalen laundries, mother and child homes, industrial schools, that the state knew exactly what was going on inside them. And then the state, to add insult to injury, with a deal done by the former Fianna Fáil Minister Michael Woods in 2002, indemnifies the church to a tune of €128 million, while the state has paid €1.5 billion in retribution for the abuse that had gone on because of the church. Now, what we have to say, in order to really do something about the future, is we have to drop the Woods deal, get rid of it immediately, make the church pay for not just a memorial to the children, but for every penny in offence that they have caused their families and their survivors. And Taoiseach, send a clear signal to this country that the days of abuse of women and the obsession with their pregnancies and their bodies are over. And to do that, support my bill tonight to end the 14-year sentence for abortion in this country. That is obscene that we have that, and it has to go. So I'm asking you to do two things, Taoiseach. Join me in a call for the Bon Secour order to disband themselves today, support the bill tonight, and call on people in a dignified, quiet manner to gather at the Bon Secour Institutes on Friday night to remember those children and to ask that order to go.
The Bon Secour hospitals in this country have given thousands of instances of exceptional care for people and patients who needed them. Clearly, the situation in Tuam is a case that's the subject of a commission of investigation. Serious numbers of babies and young children remains have been uncovered. I think it's important, Deputy Smith, to allow the independent commission which was set up by this Oireachtas to do its work. As I pointed out to both Deputy Martin and Deputy Doherty, there are independent responsibilities with the coroner and the Gardaí, and the local authority have engaged now very intensively with the local community. There is a court case going on, as you know, in respect of Mr Mulryan, and I do hope that it's possible for him, and will be possible for him, to find out what happened his sister so many years ago. In respect of your bill, which has been taken this evening, about a question on abortion, the essence of your bill is to reduce penalties for where an abortion is carried out unlawfully in this country to €1. The point has been made to me very, very powerfully and very graphically by a number of people who pointed out that you're changing legislation, which clearly is enshrined in the Constitution here, means that, for instance, you are saying that if somebody kicks their pregnant partner, kills the baby they're carrying, is to be guilty of a fine of €1.
The Bon Secour Hospital is the biggest private health provider in this country. It has an accumulated profit of 74 million. And it also has on its hands the bones of the dead children of Tuam. Now, if we're serious about putting behind us the legacy of what happened in the mother and baby homes, then the least we could ask that order to do is disband and write itself out of the history books of this country. The very least we should do. We also have the continued abuse of women because of those abortion laws, and we have Vera Toomey outside now with Deputy Jean O'Kenny looking for access to health care for her very sick child. The abuse of women and children has not stopped and has been outlined time and time again in this Dáil. Taoiseach, are you aware that the Church has offered to pay back 480 million because of the scandals? They've actually paid back 211 million and the State has paid 1.4 billion. Now, when is the Church, with all its lucrative lands and wealth, going to be made to pay back? When are we going to get them out of our lives, out of our beds, out of our hospitals and out of our schools? And the way we'll do that is start by calling on the Bon Secour to disband and calling on them to pay for a memorial fitting tribute to those children and to their families, and to pay the High Court cases of the likes of Peter Mulrine, who's had to go to the High Court to find out what has happened to his sister.
Well, as I said, the House here debated and considered this previously. We set up a commission of investigation. It has a function. It's not completed its work by any means. Have uncovered and located substantial numbers of babies and young children in this particular location, and there are others that the Commission will make its formal findings and they'll be brought back here, and obviously the Oireachtas will reflect on that. You mentioned about Mother Mrs. Toomey. She's also meeting the Minister for Health today for the 5th time. The Minister has made it very clear that in respect of medicinal cannabis for treatment of patients, for people who might have recourse to that it does require authorisation of a prescription. While an application for a prescription has been made here, that is not to be taken as authorising a prescription. And he's given the details of that last week, and obviously he's talking again to Vera and her family. I met with her myself in Cork just a fortnight ago. Obviously, the paediatric neurologist is required to make an adjudication here, and I'm not putting pressure on the medical profession. There's a process there. The Minister has already arranged a meeting of the committee under Dr. Harty to discuss this matter today. I think that's probably over by now. Is meeting with Ms. Vera Toomey himself.
Deputy, please. Deputy, please. Deputy, please.
Yeah, you raised the point about Vera Toomey being outside the gate.
Deputy, please.
No, you raised it as part of your question, and you said.
Deputy, please. Deputy, the Taoiseach is responding.
You chose.
I'm asking you to.
Deputy Smith, you chose to raise your question, in the course of which you said that Deputy Jean O'Kenny was outside the gate with Mrs. Toomey. And I replied to that by saying that the Minister is meeting with her for the 5th time today in an effort to deal with this, and obviously has called the committee together under Dr Harty's chair, that the question of bringing forward the legislation for compassionate distribution of medicinal cannabis is being brought forward, which still will require a prescription to be signed off by a paediatric neurosurgeon.
Deputy, please. Tá